r/ask Reddit. What's something a friend has said to you that changed the way you look at them? My first year of college I was feeling a bit lonely at Christmas time because things weren't working out for me to get back home with family for the holidays. One of the friends I'd met on campus first semester invited me to spend the holidays with him and his family, and to meet his friends back home. It was as if he and his family had adopted me for the occasion, and made me feel truly included and part of the entire experience, as did his friends there, too. His invitation made all the difference, and was the start for me to do similar good and unexpected kind deeds for others in a more regular, determined way. I was waiting for the negative plot twist, but this is nice. Me too. I thought it was gonna end with awkward, forced sodomy under the Christmas tree. Glad it turned out nice. In grade 9 I had a friend who showed me nudes of his sister he had on his phone. I was kind of grateful, but then I thought, why the duck does this guy have saved nudes of his sister on his phone? Yeah, that's ducking creepy. I'm going to bet he's not proud of that. Kids and teenagers do weird shit. Sounds like you have a story of your own. I have a friend who somehow never seems down or sad, so I always thought he was just a happy kind of guy. But one day I was bitching about some stupid shit that happened at work. It was over some small exchange that didn't really matter in the long run, but I was letting it get to me hours later. After 10-15 minutes of me venting and saying today was a shitty day, he simply asked me, "Are you having a bad day? Or did you have a bad 5 minutes and you're letting ruin your whole day?" Made me realize it's up to me to have a good day, and that he goes through day-to-day shit too, but knows how to handle it. It made me realize that he wasn't just a happy kind of guy, he was a wise person. Yep, reminds me of that Buddhist story. Two monks are walking down a road that had flooded recently. They come across a lady who can't figure out how to walk across a stream without getting her clothes all wet. So the older monk picks up the lady and carries her across the stream, and sets her down on the other side. The younger monk is shocked because monks should never touch women. So they continue their walk for a few hours in silence before the young monk says, "You should not have picked up that lady back there." And the old monk says, "I put her down after crossing the stream. You are still carrying her with you." Damn, wasn't expecting this kind of deepness. During hard times or periods of depression I had a friend who would text me and say, "You don't have to respond to this, but just know I'm here for you / love you / thinking of you." For someone like me who tends to withdraw and then feel guilty about it, it was the nicest thing anyone had said to me and really made me felt understood. I prefer to date stupid women because they are easier to control. I knew the guy was a ladies' man and a bit of a gym bro, but did not expect that. I've heard men casually say more benign versions of the same thing. That smart, ambitious women are not worth the trouble. It's unsettling how many people just accept and tacitly approve of stuff like that from their friends. Good for you for speaking up. I assume you did. Smart, ambitious people can legitimately be harder to date. I'm going to travel and I might do it alone, unless I can bring a person that understands me and knows how to play along, go with the flow and all that, and the only person I can think of is you. What a compliment. This made me really happy. We leave for a hitchhiking trip to nowhere in August. We are both theater people and we have big plans for an ensemble. This is going to be great. Edit. How nice to have this as my top comment. Thanks guys. Hey there. As a person who travels solo frequently, that sort of hits home. Don't get me wrong. I love traveling solo and being by myself. I'm an introvert who enjoys solitude, but I also wouldn't mind it if some of my trips were done in the company of a good friend. The problem is that most people I know are getting married, have kids, don't have enough vacation time, or money, etc. to go on a 4-week-long trip to Nepal just so we can go hiking and eat the local food, and sleep in tents. That or it's not their idea of a good vacation. But then when I get back from each one of my trips they always tell me they are jealous I get to have such cool adventures. It's so hard to find someone to go with. This year I was organizing a road trip around Iceland and everyone ended backing out and I had to cancel. Instead I'm flying to Japan solo. Duck it. If I ever turn to someone and say, "I really want to go on a trip with you," you are perfect. I mean it. I got started traveling when a friend said that to me. Not quite. You're perfect. but more like would you like to travel to the end of the world with me to do some hiking? I was honored. It felt amazing. It was a trip of a lifetime and now I'm hooked. But unfortunately since then I've only been on one trip with a travel buddy. I usually travel alone. I had a friend tell me something very similar. I turned round and told him I couldn't think of a single person who annoys me as much as he does, and that he's a total wanker. We went traveling for 5 months. It was awesome. As long as you're going with someone who makes you laugh, you'll have the best time. Friend of mine. We've never been super close, but we're buddies. One day, after the rest of our social group had left and it was just us, we got to talking. He'd had a partner in a project a while back. His partner was a funny guy, but he was terrible at schoolwork. He just didn't have instincts for what teachers were looking for. The project ended up getting a really bad grade. My friend starts talking about him. He explained that he chose that guy as his partner because he fascinated him. The partner was a unique kind of guy, and my friend wanted to get to know him, to find out what made him tick. I discovered that this friend of mine was a rare kind of person indeed. He was genuinely interested in other people. He wanted to know what motivates them, and to understand their perspective. I gained a lot of respect for him then, and I've never looked at him the same since. You must be similar to him in that respect because you found out what made him tick and it interested you so much that you remembered it and told the story here. And you must be similar to them in that respect because you were interested enough to comment on what interested him about how his friend was interested in that guy. Not long after my parents split up, my friend at school was getting annoyed at something in maths and I said you just do this and he said yeah well at least my parents still love each other. Was pretty ducked up for someone who refused to watch Peep Show because they said too many awkward things. My best high school friend told me, just hours after I lost both my grandparents who I dearly loved and admired, that I should stop whining and instead listen to her actual problems. I stole your favorite horse book and threw it away, Gilliana, so suck it. Duck Gilliana. Gilliana is a dunt. Duck her horse book. He's known for not being all that smart, and having a very traditional mind when it comes to women. We were talking and I said that I didn't want any children. And he said, you don't have to if you don't want it. He may not be as close-minded as I thought. It's nice when something like that happens. On the flip side I said this to someone I felt comfortable around one day and I got back a serious what is wrong with so many of you women now. You're broken and don't want to do what you're naturally made for. Ouch. Reminds me of something I read either on Reddit or Fuck. It was an OB nurse who was in the room during a delivery and the woman was in extreme pain and was begging her husband to allow the docs to give her drugs and he was patting her hand and said, now dear, you know you have suffered for Eve's sin. What actual? My friend Jen had recently split from her husband of 10 years due to not only a verbally abusive relationship, but also because she found out he was sleeping with his secretary. In my 1-year friendship with her I had witnessed him saying things like I don't know why you hide your smoking Jen. You smell ducking disgusting and you obviously want to leave your son without a mom. Comma. I'm not trying to sound rude but you're never going to look great in anything until you lose weight. I'm just being honest with you to help you. Comma. She was 5 feet 4 inches and 150 lbs. Jen never gets eaten out because she doesn't keep her meat flaps clean enough. Haha. Comma. Why do you hug everyone who comes over? Do you have to remind everyone how slutty you are when you drink? I could probably write a very sad book with them all. I went over to her new apartment to cheer and console her and ended up sitting through one of the most uncomfortable and creepy conversations ever. Some of her statements included, well I have to thank him for so much because he really did help me to become a better person. Well I'm still sleeping with him because she doesn't make him happy and he says he misses me in bed. He came to pick up my son and noticed how much weight I've lost finally. So I really have him to thank for that. He told me he's proud. That really fills me with joy. Making him proud. I left and cried in my car for half an hour because nothing I could say would reach her. She went back to him 3 months later and I haven't spoken to her since. Edit. Some of you are so very supportive and you're obviously very great people. Anyone would be lucky to have friends like you. I'm going to send my ex-friend a hello and maybe leave that door open in case she decides to walk through. Thank you guys. There are a couple comments here that make me really sad. Apparently this guy is not alone out there. She needs friends for support. People in abusive relationships isolate themselves very easily, and it makes their abusers hold on them stronger, without someone telling them how important they are, what a good person they are. They'll continue to believe the things their abuser says. Your friend deserves help. She most certainly does. She's a great person. I tried my very best for a long time, but maybe I'm just not qualified enough to be helpful. That whole awful conversation just could not be swayed no matter what I said. So after a year and some of that, I just backed out. Everyone you meet knows something you don't. My grandfather told me this, and it's been a good reminder that I am surrounded by teachers. Time is the best teacher. It's just a shame it kills all its students. Edit. Damn it. I was wrong. Fixed it. Never be ashamed to be the least wise man in the room, as long as you listen to the others. Often I see other women as a threat or a competition. I just don't feel that with you. You're just not someone I'd ever bother to compete with. Spoken by a true narcissistic personality who struggle to maintain friendships. You can guess why. I had a similar experience with a friend I told another story about in this thread. She told me she prefers hanging out with me over her other friends. BC when I'm around all the guys pay attention to her. Edit. Duck that girl. I hope you're not still friends. I don't know you, but you way out compete anyone who would think that, let alone say it. I had a good friend from high school tell me, as we were walking to the bar in our early 20s, since you had your baby and put on so much weight, it's nice to have all the guys catcalling me instead. That was the beginning of the end of our friendship. A friend said that she didn't understand how I could want to be a good person when I don't believe in God. She legitimately didn't know why I would try to do the right things and be a good person if no entity was judging me from afar and there was no reward after death. I know a woman who started asking me about my beliefs and I told her that I had none. She kept asking why I don't murder and rape people, why I don't steal and just duck everybody up. Finally she asked me to explain why I don't believe in God. I was like, yeah, no, I don't think it's a good idea to let you away from religion. Praise to the Lord. People like this legitimately scare me. They are literally saying that without some long-term punishment or reward, they would not bother controlling their impulses. These kinds of people should not be left alone. They are insane. My roommate and I were always having deep conversations when we were drinking. She was always a little shy about herself, and rarely went into details that she deemed were too personal. After a few drinks I asked her what kind of sex she was into. She straight up told me, I really like anal. It was one of the first really personal details she revealed about herself, and that moment made us trust each other a lot more. Then we made out. Should also point out that I did not do anal with her. Well, that was rude. She said she really liked it. The best feeling in the world is that moment when you realize you have the kind of friendship where you can truly and utterly be yourself. Second to that is definitely anal. You need glasses, needless to say. I went to the eye doctor and got glasses. It changed the way I looked at her and everything else. He was promoted to project manager at work and during the presentation he hogged the credit instead of spreading it around. I gave him a heads up after the meeting. Hey man, you can't just act like you did it all yourself. There's no I in team. Remember? There is on mine. Dude's probably been promoted 3 times since then. A woman was raped in a park near to where I live. We were discussing it and my friend goes, well, she must have been wearing a really short skirt or something. We aren't friends anymore. Let that one drift off pretty quick. Ugh. I used to think people with these attitudes didn't really exist outside of movies and TV shows. Several years ago I was relentlessly sexually harassed by someone I worked with and the guy I was dating asked me, well, what are you doing to make him do that? Really disgusting that people honestly think this way and see nothing wrong with it. Not sure if it counts, but it's something she did. My best and only friend had left to college and I stayed home. Well, I went to visit her up at her college and stayed with her in her dorm. She seemed off the entire time and just really not paying much attention to me, and she didn't seem excited to see me. I didn't want to bring it up and instead ignored it thinking it would get better. But that night she just said I'm going to a party and left me there in her dorm, alone. That was the last straw. She came home super drunk so I couldn't even talk to her about it. In the morning I woke up early and left. So, my best friend of 7 years is no longer my friend. Also now I have 0 friends. But at least that means I don't have shitty ones either. Edit. Thanks everyone for replying. It feels good to talk about it. That's pretty ducked up. So rude. Don't worry about it. You made the right choice. If she makes a conscious effort to try and apologize and reconcile, what will you do? I'd have lots of stories, positive and negative, but the most screeching halt and turnaround moment was a friend telling me that he can't wait for my sister to turn 18. Sister at the time was 11. He was 23. You threw him out, right? My ex-boss did that several times. He was 43 and she was 10. He owned the law firm I worked in. I'd vote for Trump. Because if Hillary wins, who's next, a gay president? LOL. Why? Jesus, this mentality goes way beyond political candidates. He's basically telling you that not having a straight white male president is gateway to degeneracy. And that's pretty sickening. Edit. Alright, I get it, he isn't necessarily racist as well. Stop telling me. I just assumed so because Obama was in office. Although, admittedly, I'm all for a gateway to degeneracy. When I broke up with my ex, who was African American, I'm Caucasian, my friend, now ex-friend, said good. It weren't natural you dating a racial slur. We ain't supposed to breed with them. He had given no indication as to how he felt all the while we were dating, and when he said that, I told him I didn't want to be associated with a racist piece of trash and we went our separate ways. Been on the other end of that one before. My ex's friends, out of nowhere, made the same comment about me. The ex was cool with it. I noped right on out of there. He once told me a story about a mutual friend of ours, which was pretty funny. Then a year later he says the same story but replacing the mutual friend with another person. Started taking everything he says with a grain of salt. Sometimes that's really all it takes. A tiny slip like that to make you question a lot of what they say. Memories are way less reliable than you think. When there's no milk, I just use water. What kind of savages do you associate with? Freshman year in college, I was hanging out with a group of relatively new friends, smoking me and chilling at one of the house one of them lived in. I was kinda high and just started rambling on about something stupid and it seemed nobody was listening. I felt really dumb and trailed off to a silence, and then, sorry, one of the guys, Spencer, leaned over to me and said, don't ever apologize for being you. If you want to talk about something, do it. Even if it's only you. Be confident. He's now one of my best friends and I'm moving in with him next semester. I dealt with social anxiety in high school and hearing this really helped me in a huge way. Hey, quit making that stupid face at me. This isn't even funny. Why are you making me laugh? In high school, I knew this kid in history class who seemed pretty slow in all regards. He was pretty much a recluse, never seemed to be able to grasp any of the material being taught and always had an aide with him. I'm not quite sure what his disability was, but I've always figured he was somewhere on the spectrum. Anyway, I sat next to him, and over the course of the year, I eventually got to speak to him and his aide. His aide did most of the talking, but nonetheless, I was able to consider him somewhat of a friend. Throughout all of that, I pretty much figured that he'd be someone who would lead a fairly bland life, always needing help with things. Looking back, it's kind of a shitty thing to think, but I've seen a lot of people go down this path. I figured he was the same. Summer comes and goes and I end up getting into AP Calc. He is there. Over the course of the semester, I watched this kid ducking kill it. Nearly everything given to him was handled quickly. He opened up and actually spoke very well with other students and was generally the most enthusiastic person in the room when it came to doing the work and helping others. And when the period ended, you could see him quickly go back to how he was beforehand. Last I heard, he was being vetted by a few big tech companies. I've since learned not to judge others so quickly. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.